Hello and welcome to News 9 Facebook Live with me, Adarsh Vepachedu. Now, at this point in time, there is so much happening in the Galwan Valley. A lot has been transpiring between the People's Liberation Army of China and the Indian Army. Well, the current standoff is a result of plenty of skirmishes that have been taking place over a period, and this standoff at this point in time has only escalated into a major skirmish between the two sides, and there seems to be no sign of de-escalation of tensions, despite the fact that you have several talks at various levels, for example, the Major General level, that are taking place between the two sides. Despite the talks, you have so much that is happening on ground, and as a result of that, the Indian Army has lost 20 of its Jawans. They've been martyred, unfortunately, but yes, there has been damage done to the Chinese side as well. So could all of this have been avoided? Is this the right time for something like this? And the kind of standoff that has escalated into this, is it something that happens on a yearly basis, just that this year it has gone out of control? Are a few questions that we must talk about. But yes, when it comes to the polity of India, the opposition parties right here in the country, like the Congress itself, have been raising questions pertaining to Prime Minister Modi's silence on the standoff that continues to ensue in the Galwan Valley. So yes, in fact, in the latest, you had the Prime Minister meeting the Chief Ministers of various states to take stock of the situation of COVID-19 across the country. And before this meeting, the Prime Minister came out and gave a clear-cut, stern warning to the Chinese side. Now, this was a long time coming. A few questions were raised as to why the Prime Minister was not being vocal about what was transpiring. But here is a situation where he has become vocal, and he has clearly given out a few warnings. So we'll start with the warnings first, and then we'll get into what really is transpiring across the line of actual control between India and China. And for that, I also have an expert, someone who's donned the uniform, someone who's served the Indian Army, Indian Air Force to be more precise, in the form of Air Marshal B.K. Murli. He'll be joining us in just a bit. He's joining us on the Skype line. But yes, looking at the warnings first as to what has Prime Minister Modi said. Warning number one: the martyrdom of our Indian Army soldiers will not go in vain at any cost. We've been telling you, and you all must know by now, that 20 of our Jawans have been martyred in this tension that has taken place, and in the gross violations committed by the Chinese side. There was no provocation whatsoever, but you had the Chinese army, in a sense, taking on the Indian Army Jawans at the border, and that quickly escalated into a full-blown skirmish between the Indian and Chinese side, and there were martyrs, there were casualties on the Indian side as well. So their martyrdom will not go in vain is one clear-cut warning that the Prime Minister has given. This almost reminds us of what he said before the Balakot airstrike. So whether we will get to see something like that is another question in itself. Another warning that the Prime Minister has clearly given out is that the territorial integrity of India is supreme. If there is any force, any country if trying to occupy the territory of India illegally, then India will not sit back. That's again a clear-cut indication that the Prime Minister has given. The Prime Minister has also gone ahead and has asserted that the Chinese, in this case, should not be under any kind of illusion as to what is whose territory and as to how much Indian Army will be able to respond. Do not be in some kind of a la-la land is what the Prime Minister has clearly stated to the Chinese side. Another warning that has come out from Prime Minister Modi is that Indian Army and India can respond in kind, but if pushed to the hilt, then there can be other ways of response as well. That's the underlying message in this particular warning. Do not intrude on Indian sovereignty. That's again another warning. Our restraint is not our weakness. There has been immense amount of restraint shown by the Indian side ever since the standoff began, and this cannot be misconstrued as a weakness. That's coming in from the Prime Minister himself. So do not provoke us is the broader message. If you provoke us, there will have to be action that we will have to take. These are a few key messages, key warnings that Prime Minister Modi has given given out to the Chinese side, and this was in a sense long time coming. But yes, looking back at what transpired between the Indian Army and the PLA along the line of actual control, it was on Monday night when there was regular patrolling that was going on, and suddenly there was unprovoked action from the Chinese side, and we're all talking about built up area, built up tents that are well within Indian territory, and the Chinese have been coming into Indian territory, occupying Indian territory, and saying that it is theirs. So that's the kind of standoff that is currently underway. It's almost like a bunch of lies that the Chinese has been peddling all along. They've been calling our territory as theirs, and they're saying that it comes under them and they can do whatever they want. That's roughly been the kind of attitude that the Chinese have been portraying from the beginning. In fact, in the latest, you also have the foreign ministry come out and say of China that Galwan Valley is completely theirs and there is no two things about it. So you have so much coming in from the Chinese side, and in the end the Chinese, all they do is that they blame the Indians of provocation, and they completely pin the blame on us as to why this entire situation has come to this level. In fact, to really elaborate as to what's happening on ground, we shall now get our expert in. Many thanks, Air Marshal B.K. Murali. First up, I'd like to check if you're able to hear me, if my voice is clear and audible.
Absolutely, Adarsh, it's a great pleasure to be with News 9 once again, talking to you and interacting with you, and I'm getting absolutely strengthified, and I'm just raring to go.
Many thanks, V.K. Murali sir. First up, what is Patrolling Point 14? We're getting to understand that this is where all the action has been going on. On Monday itself, a lot transpired. So how did this really pan out, and was it really required from the Chinese side, given the fact that you have talks of de-escalation taking place? Your first thoughts on Patrolling Point 14?
Others, Patrolling Point 14 is on the north of the Galwan Valley, and it is very close to the Finger 5 formation, or what they call as the fingers 1 to 8. They are actually mountain tops. It's a strategic point as far as India is concerned, and equally strategic as far as China is concerned. And actually overlooking that particular Figure 8 formation is the Galwan Valley. Galwan Valley, actually it's full of water during the summer season, because the snow belts and the water actually gets it flows through that valley. And then across the valley is the lake to the south, and then next to it is Dabruk Shuk DBO road, which we have been constructing.
Correct.
So when they look from their point, either through the Sirijop 1 or through the Galwan Valley triangle between number 5 and number 8 fingers, they can actually see the Indian Army movement along the road to Daulat Beg Oldi from the eastern Ladakh. This has been the bone of contention, in the recent times. Now, a little bit of background, I'm sure, will not be out of place. Others, Daulat Beg Oldi has always been a flashpoint.
Correct.
In 2008, when actually we landed an AN-32 aircraft at Daulat Beg Oldi, makeshift 3,000 meters runway,
correct,
we did not know that it would open a Pandora's box.
Right.
In fact, in 2013, the Chinese came in 19 kilometers inside.
Correct.
In fact, Daulat Beg Oldi is about 8 kilometers from the south of Karakoram Highway, which they have built from the Xinjiang province, Xinjiang in the Aksai Chin, right up to the Gwadar port. This is the trade route which actually runs through the Gilgit-Baltistan area. Now, when actually we landed in AN-32 in 2008, subsequently in 2009, and once again a few years later, a Hercules landed there. You might be really surprised to hear others that in 2009 I landed there myself in Daulat Beg Oldi. It was actually a Kacha 3,000 meters runway. Of course, now it is refurbished, and that has been a bone of contention. In fact, today, because of that, metal road, which is of course yet to be finished, but a large portion was inaugurated last year by Raksha Mantri. Our troops can go, through the cross country, right from Eastern Ladakh, right up to the Daulat Beg only, and that is a really a very strategic point, and that is exactly what is irking this Chinese people. Now, Galwan Valley was the scene of action in 1962.
Correct.
Yeah, subsequently, they actually pushed back from Galwan Valley. And then Galwan Valley is adjoining to Aksai Chin, and it actually overlooks the Tibet. Now, Galwan Valley is very important to them because of this reason. In fact, it is possible to actually access Tibet from the northern side through the Galwan Valley. Now, from finger 1 to finger 8 has never been in a bone of contention because it is in the Indian territory. Now comes the most important question. What is Chinese territory and what is Indian territory? Today, there is no demarcation on the ground.
Correct.
Nobody knows what is LAC. If the Chinese come to some point, actually put a red flag there and put a tent and say this belongs to us, then they expect the Indian side to say, all right, this is yours, take it and go. Some things don't happen on the ground. And that is where all this problem has come up. And patrolling point 14 was, recently the 16th Bihar Battalion took over the patrolling duties from the Indo-Tibetan Border Force. And that is how this patrolling started at PPA 14, which is very close to Finger 5 area. And there has been, of course, some scuffles in the past in that very area, but the Chinese were this time ready with the all iron rods, then barbed wire, wrapped iron rods.
In fact, they sent some of their there's another team. There's a specific team of trained soldiers who are experts in hand-to-hand combat. It's being said that the Chinese summoned these folks and they went in and massacred the Bihar regiment soldiers on Monday night.
No, others actually, as far as the hand-to-hand combat is concerned, every infantry soldier is trained and is well versed.
Right.
In fact, our soldiers are no less. They are absolutely experts in hand-to-hand combat. That is besides the point. Today, we have a mounted division placed in Eastern Ladakh, and we are experts in high altitude warfare, an expertise which the Chinese don't have. But that is not the issue. We must tell this to the viewers that in 2017, when actually the Doklam standoff took place in the Doklam Tri-Junction, there was only physical pushing and abuses and screaming and shouting there.
Correct.
Before actually the entire matter was de-escalated 73 days later. But others, look now, exactly 2 years, the Chinese have come prepared with iron rods. That means in 2 years, things have changed, that now they are ready to hit you with sticks and stones and iron rods. And secondly, the Chinese philosophy, which is known to probably every soldier and every veteran like me, is 2 steps back, 1 step forward. This is their philosophy. This is exactly what they have done. They have taken 2 steps back, and they have come charging towards the Bihar regiment, about 40 odd commanding officer and soldiers, and actually pounced on them. But the worst is they have even pushed them into the Galwan Valley. They fell into the water, and because of very extreme temperatures of the water, and a large majority have died. Right. This is exactly what has happened, something that is most unprecedented, and this was uncalled for. To say that, okay, you are coming to our territory is laughable because nobody has demarcated any territory there. In fact, for the last 17 years, Chinese are sitting on this particular decision. In 2003, our Prime Minister, late Atal Bihari Vajpayee, went to China and said, look, let us form a committee and then, delineate in the maps and demarcate the LAC on the ground. 17 years later, we are still in the same position.
With that,
it suits them not to demarcate the boundary on the ground. For simple reason, so that they can actually go wherever they want and say that it belongs to us.
Free for all.
This is the reason
That's
why all these problems are taking place
Right.
today.
Right.
If we had found a solution to this some time ago, I'm sure all these things probably could have been put to rest.
Indeed, Marshall, very nicely put. But again, at this point in time, there is no solution forthcoming. There has been so much response from the Chinese side. We've lost as many as 20 Jawans on the Indian Army side. So Prime Minister Modi has come out, he's given a clear-cut warning to China, and he's almost spoken about retaliation as well. So how capable is the Indian Army at this point in time to retaliate, and what form of retaliation are we expecting? Because again, I just reheard Prime Minister Modi's warning twice, thrice. It really sounded like what he spoke before the Balakot airstrike. Eerie similarity. So kindly tell us as to what is the possibility on ground from the Indian Army side going forward.
To the best of our knowledge, the Indian Army has proposed to Raksha Mantri and probably through him to the Cabinet Committee of Security that there should be a localized, calibrated response to Chinese misadventure. Mark my words, it is a localized, calibrated response to the Chinese misadventure. That means they want to localize the response themselves in the Galwan Valley. And probably not use the kind of weapons and artillery and support that army normally has, and probably go with a similar mindset as the Chinese and physically push them back, even if it comes to, even if it comes to hitting them and thrashing them or throwing them out or whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is, if we do not give this response. In fact, most of the top military experts, military thinkers are of the view that a calibrated, localized response is just round the corner, exactly like what we did in Balakot. But Balakot was a bigger operation.
Correct. Correct.
But then, in fact, the pattern is similar. Discussion took place between the Raksha Mantri and the 3 defense chiefs. And then subsequently the Prime Minister comes and says that the martyrs, actually Balidan will not go west, and etc. etc. So there is a possibility that such a response may be there in a few, maybe after some time.
Right.
But then it is a response of our, style, our
correct.
choosing, and our place, and our weapons. I'm sure there will be a response.
Yes.
Why there should be a response? You just imagine others. 20 soldiers of the Bihar regiment have martyred.
Correct.
What will you tell them? Will you tell them, oh, all right, 20 of our colleagues have died. Now what has happened. Now I think we should let bygones be bygones. Let us resolve this issue through dialogue. Can we tell the soldiers? If we say so, then the soldiers will be demoralized. 16 Bihar Adarsh has got a checkered history of valor in our country. We cannot tell them that, oh, sorry, you please, throttle back. There's going to be no response from our side. This is precisely what the Chief of the Army Staff would have told Raksha Mantri in the morning, and through him to the Prime Minister.
Right. So response is in the offing, and that it's very clear, it's a writing on the wall that there will be a response, and that's coming in from VK Murali nonetheless. Air Marshal, many thanks for joining us with your inputs, with your thoughts, and with your knowledge from the ground itself as to what will happen going forward. And yes, the entire country is with the armed forces, and we are saddened by the loss of the 20 of our Jawans, and one only hopes that a befitting reply is given and that the lives of our martyrs is avenged. Many thanks, BK Murali sir, for joining us on this little interaction. And yes, while the skirmishes between India and China continue, it was something that could have been completely avoided had things been set right between the two countries, had there been a line that was drawn between the two countries, not now, but long time ago. Yes, that's all we have in this brief interaction. But do join us on the other side. We have lots more coming in. And this is Adarsh Vepachedu signing off.